Do I put my arm around?
Huddle a little bit.
That's all we do around streamers.
Get some hover hands going. Super awkward.
Hey ZiggyD. So as you can see from my character in the background, I get really jazzed anytime a new microtransaction comes out, and I've even played like bad builds because they had a really nice looking MTX. So do you guys plan on releasing new MTX at a similar rate that we've been seeing, or do you plan on devoting in the future, more resources to like cosmetics production, I guess, as your game grows? All right, thanks.
So the rate that we produce microtransactions depends basically on staff availability. So historically, we were getting by with one visual effects artist, and he had to make all the visual effects, like all the particle effects on the things, and the skills. He had to do all the skills, and he had to do all the bosses and all the new monsters, and every time there's a water splash somewhere, that's that guy. And now we have 4. The 4th one joined us this week. So with 4 people available, it means we can actually power these out quite a lot better. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, about half of our microtransaction burden goes into mystery boxes and the other half gets released throughout the league. So in the second half of the league, when there are fewer players, we typically don't bother to release new microtransactions, just offering sales on existing stuff. So there is stuff planned, both for the new mystery box that you'll see this weekend when Breach launches, and also for release over the Christmas period and so on. So yes, there are microtransactions stocked up. I would like to say we'll double the rate that we're releasing microtransactions at, because that probably increases the company's revenue. So in general, there's nothing stopping us making more microtransactions, just a matter of getting the right amount of manpower on it.
My question is, between 2013 and 2015, there were 4 to 5 race seasons through the course of each of those years. This year, 2016, there were only 2 race seasons. With the planned racing changes on the horizon, what efforts will be made in 2017 to re-engage players like me who enjoy racing, engage new players in racing, and keep both of those groups playing the game throughout the year? Thank you.
We love race seasons, and this is why we've been doing them throughout the years. Recently, we had a good look at the numbers to see what is the impact of a race season, because it's something that the company is not monetizing, and we wanted to see what are we getting from it in terms of player retention. And the answers were surprising. Historically, whenever we've started a race season, we've seen a downturn with player retention. We've seen a downturn with engagement with the leagues. And looking into it, we believe this is due to a few reasons. The first one is that when a race season starts, it muddles up the perspective of what players are trying to achieve. Their objective in the league is confused. So we say to players, look, you have to build high-level characters, play high-tier maps, conquer the best content, and then while they're in the middle of that, we go, okay, it's race time. You've got to get these points, you have to earn these prizes, you have to disrupt what you're doing and play on our schedule to compete in races. And it does mean that people kind of get disengaged from actually pushing ahead in the league, because time spent racing is not time spent gaining economic advantage over other players. The other thing is that mapping groups historically have been disrupted. If you're playing, say, a 6-person party where every evening you get together, but now 2 of your members insist on playing races, then you've only got 4 people, and it kind of just breaks up these well-formed groups. Maybe this is a bit less relevant in today's meta where people are playing more solo, but either way, historically, racing has actually been somewhat negative for player retention. It causes the league to end earlier. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't want to do any racing in the future. I'm just saying we have to be really careful. So what we can say is that there will be more races next year. We want to put races in wherever we can. If we can sneak a weekend of races in, we'll do it. We just have to be careful with seasons. The other thing about seasons is they take a lot of money to produce. We have to come up with a whole set of prizes, a whole schedule, and we get most of the player activity in the first week of the season. People want shorter seasons. They play at the beginning, and then they get bored of competing and stop playing in the season. But we've put all the effort into making prizes suitable for someone playing, 100 events, for example. So the whole thing needs to change. Now, asynchronous racing, where there's a race every day and you can play it whenever you want to if you're interested, would solve this perfectly. But this is a significant technical investment we just haven't made yet. I mean, I've got all the technical guys working on performance at the moment, because that honestly needs improvement more than the racing scene does. So I'm sorry that there isn't good news about racing in the near future. I can't promise there'll be tons of seasons in 2017, but there will be races and there will be improvements to this as soon as we can.
When making larger changes to Path of Exile, it becomes easier to upset certain groups within the community. With this in mind, how do you decide when it is reasonable to make changes alienating an older demographic to capture a larger, newer demographic, or even disagreeing with a majority of feedback to make a decision that upsets this majority in order to retain the game's vision?
The trade question. I'm just kidding. You have a very, very good point here, and I completely agree with the point that you're making. I'd like to first touch on this concept of the majority of feedback. So the majority of feedback does not always equal the majority of players. There's a silent majority, like 80% of users, who just don't express their feedback and are generally playing in a less hardcore way than those who are on Reddit and are on the forums. So we have to be careful. You get these situations where, let's say there's someone posts something on Reddit that sounds awesome to them and everyone upvotes it saying this is the best thing for the game. They could be right, but it could still be really bad for the vast majority of silent players who come in from work and play the game without really considering the more hardcore community. Having said that, our devoted vocal fan base from many years ago is the most important group of players to us, and we won't compromise that group in order to make a fast buck or attract a new audience. And that's why Path of Exile is still an unforgivingly difficult action RPG in a world where we could tone it down substantially and try to capture a lot of there's a lot of action RPG players out there looking for an easy game to play at the moment. We could dumb things down and with a 3.0 release try to capture everyone in, but this isn't something we're going to do. We want to make sure that the game retains its roots, and there are a lot of things that we stick to even when everyone thinks we're crazy. Like the fact we haven't just gone and dropped in a trivial instant buyout auction house that would solve everyone's trade problems, creating a ton more, is a testament to the fact that we aren't going to be swayed by highly upvoted threads where everyone agrees that we're making the wrong decision, because there are reasons behind the scenes that are true to our vision and are true for the long-term success of the game, where we want to do what we feel is right rather than what a small vocal group of the users are asking for.
Hey guys! With every new league, new skills are being introduced as well as microtransactions, and the screen is getting very cluttered, especially with skills like Vortex. It's highly discouraging for party play. It makes dangerous mobs harder to spot, severely decreases frame rate. Are there any future plans to reduce particle effects from other players and add more graphics options?
There are a couple of facets to this, so let's discuss performance. The team would greatly prefer to make performance better without having to compromise what the game looks like. And that's been their goal, and that's what they've been working on, and we're going to see how far we can take that before we start changing any effects. And this is because we buy performance as a reason for people wanting to turn the effects off, but we kind of want to stick with the vision of having all the effects actually be visible from a gameplay point of view. If people have the ability to turn down other people's spells, they will turn them all the way off. If we put the ability to turn them down partially, they'll hack it so they're all the way off. We've seen this with things like shadows. We've seen this with texture detail. I mean, people would turn texture detail down to the point where it is literally having no advantage. It saves like half a kilobyte of RAM to go that far down. It has no performance impact on the frame rate, but people would turn it into a potato. And that has a lot of problems for the game, right? Like after we did our recent DirectX 11 update, which limited the amount that you can try to save RAM by doing that, it removed the options where you could take it past the point of reasonableness. People are saying the game looks so much better now. Well, there's a reason for that. It's because you're not forcing it into potato mode. Now, I understand the clutter concerns with the spells, right? Like that's a real thing where you're trying to fight and you can't see where things are. And the team are aware of this, and they're trying to design things so that it's not so much of a problem. They've toned down effects over time to make sure that they're not too onerous, and they do care about performance and will improve it through technical means. But I wouldn't expect to see a slider to turn down other people's effects in the near future. Maybe, eventually, but for the time being, we're going to try to solve it by a conventional means, leaving the game how it's meant to look.
So hi, I'm Ghudda, and I'm here to show you, ask a question. Are there any impactful gameplay elements that you've been unable to add because they exist outside the allowed imagination space of the game world?
Hey Ghudda, that's a good question. So I was trying to think of an example of something that we couldn't add because it exists outside the imagination space. Now, Eric and the creative team are very picky about how the game is portrayed and what content we have in it. But so far, we've found ways to fit everything in. Like, for example, with Breach, we have interdimensional alien beings from, an alternate reality. Well, we just did that. There's breaches. There's a lot of stuff that we can find an explanation for, and part of this is because the game has a strong concept of the maps being essentially dreams and shaped areas, and because of that we can say, this is taking place inside director's imagination for half an act, and it's easy to do that because of the scaffolding that we have in place. So I'm sure there will eventually be ideas that we can't do because we can't find a way. There's probably some spaceship combat we're never going to quite fit into Path of Exile, but it's working out well so far.
Perfect.